So this is everything I eat in a day as a HYROX athlete training for a sub-60. All right, so first things first, I'm gonna start off with 24 ounces of water. And to that, I'm going to be adding about 6 grams of creatine. Fun fact, 5 grams is the minimum dose, but you could actually have up to 1 gram of creatine per pound of body weight to effectively dose it. And it's not only gonna help with energy, but it's also gonna help with mental acuity as well. And I use a food scale to weigh everything just to make my life as easy as possible. And so within that, I'm also going to be adding some electrolytes. So got my creatine in there. And then you could just use a pinch of salt. I personally really like LMNT because it also has a little bit of potassium and magnesium. And I don't have a potassium supplement that I currently use right now. And so just to make sure I don't get deficient in it as an athlete, it's very important to stay properly hydrated. And so it's about 5 a.m. right now, just a bit past. It's like 5:30 something right now. So I'm gonna be heading to the gym. And on the way to the gym, I'm gonna be drinking this. And then I'm also gonna be having a little bit of this sports drink. And then finally, I'm gonna be having trusty old apple a day keeps the doctor away. So that's gonna be my first meal of the day. Pre-workout is gonna be some carbs in the form of some fruit. And I'm gonna have some electrolytes. And then intra-workout, within my workout itself, I'm gonna have this sports drink for some extra carbs to give me an extra boost. So I'll see you at the gym. All right, so we're headed to the gym and I had to run back upstairs real quick to grab this nose strip, which makes a big difference anytime I'm training. You probably saw earlier I was wearing it. I wear it every night before going to sleep because I have a slight deviated septum and it just really helps open up the nasal passages so that I can actually breathe when I'm working out. And I definitely notice a good difference. And I can use every little boost I can get, especially because I don't drink any caffeine. And so without that, it's good to have all these other ways to naturally give myself an edge. So the gym's about a 30-minute drive away from here. And so on the way there, I'm gonna listen to some motivational videos, get myself in the right headspace. During my actual workout, I don't listen to any music. The HYROX, you can't listen to anything. And so I wanna be training in that same mindset. And then when I come back and I'm commuting, I usually listen to an audiobook for 30 minutes, make sure I'm positively feeding my mind with something before I get the day started. All right, so today's workout is going to be 6-kilometer run with stations in between. And it's all gonna be at race intensity. And so I have a game plan here of 25 minutes between the warm up and the cool down, about 4 minutes of rest time, and then 70 minutes of total working out. So my goal is to work out for about 40 minutes, give or take. And there's something in HYROX called the rock zone, which is essentially all the time of transitioning between the stations, the runs, etc. And so my goal is going to be to keep the rock zone to below 4 minutes as well. And so my total workout time should be no longer than 1 hour and 15 minutes. And one thing that I have found with HYROX is it's completely changed my brain in looking at time. I want to make sure that I'm looking at time in the most efficient way possible to make sure I'm not wasting a literal second, because every minute matters, every second matters when you're running a race, and it's no different in any other aspect of our life is what I have found. So this is the way HYROX is changing my brain to view everything in this lens. So let's get into this workout and I will bring you along the ride with me. So what I'll be doing is a 1-kilometer run followed by a 1,200-meter skier. Then it's going to be a 45-second in between before going into another 1-kilometer run and then going into a 37.5 meter sled push at open weight, which is going to be 345 pounds. Then I'm going to do another 45-second rest before going into another 1-kilometer run with a 75-meter sled pull. That's going to be 3 plates, about 240 pounds or something, give or take. 45-second rest, and then I'm going to go into another 1-kilometer run doing 15 kg reverse lunges, and then finally ending it off with some wall balls at 9 kgs, which is going to be a little bit overweight compared to what I'll be doing on race day, but that is what's going to ultimately prepare me to show up at my best. One thing you always want to do when you're running on a treadmill is you want to make sure that you have at least a 1 or 2% gradient incline. to better mimic what you're going to experience when you're running outdoors. Just a nice, easy 10-minute warm-up, and we're gonna get right into it. All right, so the target time was 70 minutes, and that's including the warm-up, the workout, and the cool down. I finished the warm-up and the workout in 66 minutes, and then to be honest, I blew up. What that means in the endurance world is my heart rate went to zone 5, and I probably took like 20 minutes to just walk around, re-rack the weights, and now I'm doing my 15-minute cool down. So in total, probably like 91 minutes, plus the 20 minutes of me just recovering was probably like 101 minutes. So yeah, the good thing is when you set these target times for yourself, you're still better off than if you didn't start any target times at all. You know, one thing my business coach taught me years ago is targets are meant to be missed. And I'm very proud of the workout. It was so hard. Towards the end, I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, man, how bad do you want it? Like, why am I doing this? And in those moments where you just want to stop, man, it's so helpful to just have that North Star, that anchor, that why, give you a little bit of the edge that you need to finish. Still so hard, probably one of the hardest workouts I've ever done in my whole life. You know, I was just really thinking with fitness, man, been doing this for 11 years professionally, been working out since I was 14, 30 now, I'm 16 years, and it was the hardest workout I ever did in my life right now. It doesn't get easier, man, but you get better, you get stronger. And the bar raises for what you feel and perceive to be difficult and challenging. So let's do this 15 minutes on the bike. We're gonna go at a zone 2 pace, 80 to 85 RPM, so we're not gonna dilly-dally, 15 minutes. And zone 2's not any joke, it's difficult too. It's all hard, you know, but it's the point. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. It's one of my pet peeves with all these peptides and GLPs. It's like, man, it's not about what you get. It's not about the outcome. It's about who you become in the process. And if you take shortcuts in life, I found you just get cut short, man. All right, so we made it back home, just finished meditating. It's a little bit later than usual. Usually I have my breakfast around 8:30. Right now it's 11:30. And so we're gonna be having a post-workout protein shake. And let's go ahead and whip this up. Along with this protein shake, I'm also going to be having my main supplements for the day, which is gonna be one tablet of vitamin D. I'm gonna have one multivitamin for men's, and then I'm gonna have 3 tablets of this Nordic cod liver oil for some good omega-3s. 40 grams of oats. Cool thing with oats is in a protein shake, it gives it a little bit of a chewy consistency, and it almost feels like you're eating a meal, and that is really satisfying. 1 scoop of Ascent chocolate whey protein, which is about 33 grams. 1 tablespoon of honey, 2 tablespoons of almond butter. I almost forgot, secret ingredient, some cinnamon. Then we're gonna do about a cup of milk. A little bit of ice. Put it into the shaker bottle because protein shakes taste better when you put them in a shaker bottle. Very much like a triangle sandwich tastes better than a square sandwich. So this is gonna be my second meal of the day, post-workout protein shake, 712 calories, 46 grams of protein, 67 grams of carbs, and 30 grams of fat. Let's give it a try. That literally tastes like ice cream. No joke. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and have this, and then I'm gonna get to work, and I will see you back for meal number 3. All right, so we're back for meal number 3, and I'm going to be having some eggs with oats. So this time, instead of using whole milk, I'm going to use almond milk, because what I find is whole milk will slow me down later in the day because of a protein in it called tryptophan, which promotes sleepiness. And during the afternoon, it's about 2:30, I don't wanna be sleepy, I wanna be alert, and I wanna be moving quickly. And so almond milk is gonna be a great replacement for that. So let's dive into it. I'm gonna grab my eggs, I'm gonna grab my oats, I'm gonna grab some bananas, I'm gonna grab some spinach. This is a really exciting meal for me. What I like to do is, in the morning with my protein shake, it's a little bit on the sweeter side, but then for my lunch, it's a little bit more on the savory side. And I find that's a really good balance. You know, one thing that I like to say is, as fitness folk, we're not necessarily more disciplined than the average person when it comes to nutrition. It's just that we found foods that we love to eat, and we've made easy substitutes for them. And so we're not ever restricting ourselves. We're not ever depriving ourselves of what we actually want to eat. And it has to be that way for it to be a lifestyle. So my goal for HYROX nutritionally is making sure I'm eating at least around maintenance. I don't want to be in a deficit because I want to maintain my strength, nor do I want to be in a giant surplus because I want to maintain my speed. So HYROX, as you may know, is hybrid training. So it's a combination of endurance and strength training. And so I want to make sure I'm optimized in both of those ways. So we're going to be doing 8 ounces of almond milk with about 40 grams of oats, give or take. For my eggs, I'm going to use about a slab of butter to cook them in. You know, being South Asian, you can't tell me to give up my butter. You can't tell me to give up my milk. Just turn on the fire for the eggs. Just turn on the fire for the oats. And it's a race to get 2 whole eggs in here with 1 egg white before the butter melts, so I can place it on the pan and get it cooking. Woo! Let's go! All right, so next we're going to make some spinach. Quick hack I learned is, if you use olive oil like I do, you could actually weigh it on the food scale by putting it on first, then putting the olive oil, then putting it back, and then you see the difference is 4 grams, which is exactly where I want it to be. Now we're just going to toss in a handful of spinach. Don't really have to weigh your veggies. Not as big of a deal. Just a nice amount of spinach. Get those greens in. So earlier I was using chocolate whey protein, and then this time I'm gonna be using vanilla whey protein with a little bit of cinnamon and some banana. And it's a good way to mix it up and give myself a little bit of variety without necessarily complicating the meal to where I have to make something completely different. And then in goes the banana for some potassium, for some good micronutrients, some good fiber, and some healthy carbs. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and chow down on this and do some devotionals, and then I will see you back for meal number 4. I put too much salt on this. All right, so it's about 5 o'clock, and I'm gonna start getting ready for my dinner. And so what I have behind me is, I have a pound of ground bison, and then on the stovetop here, I have some basmati rice cooking, and then I just made a tray of frozen broccoli, and then I have some sweet potatoes that are also being prepared in the oven as well. So typically what I'll do is meal prep where I follow a 3-2-1 strategy, where for my carbs, I prepare it once per week for the entire week for the most part. Next, with my veggies, I prepare that twice a week, Sundays and Wednesdays. Today is Wednesday. And then for my meats, I prepare them 3 times a week. So I have enough for 2 days, essentially. Now, I didn't have my chicken out the night before, and so my last meal of the day, I'm actually gonna be having tuna instead of chicken breast. And the reason I like to have a little bit of a fattier cut of meat earlier in the day is because fats slow down digestion. And that's great if you want to stay fuller for longer. However, later in the night, not the best thing. You want a leaner cut of meat. You want it to digest quickly so that it doesn't disrupt the sleep quality. So again, I'm eating a little bit later than I typically would. So 6 o'clock is going to be probably my dinner. 9 o'clock is probably going to be my last meal of the day. And so I'll see you back here for meal number 4. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pound of ground bison onto the pan with some heated butter. And then I'm going to evenly coat it on one side with salt, pepper, turmeric, chili powder. I would typically add garlic powder as well, except I ran out and they literally had it nowhere at any grocery store. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And this is going to be done in about 5 to 8 minutes max. And this whole prep took me maybe 30 minutes. And so hour to 2 hours of prep time for the week, give or take, and you're in good shape. More jungly behavior. All right, so this is going to be meal number 4. We have 600 grams of uncooked sweet potatoes, raw weight, and we have that with 100 grams of broccoli and 170 grams of ground bison, actually 180 grams of ground bison. So the total calories come out for 777 with 52 grams of protein, 18 grams of fat, and 106 grams of carbs. Now, fun fact, it's actually a lot better to weigh certain foods out before cooking them, such as sweet potatoes, if most foods actually, because what ends up happening is based on the way you prepare it, like as an example, I baked my sweet potatoes. When I baked my sweet potatoes, it literally shaved down the grams in half. This is only 300 grams of cooked sweet potatoes. But guess what? It still has 600 grams of calories. And so it's so important to weigh your food out before you cook it, because through the cooking process, depending on how you make it, it will evaporate the water weight and the calories still remain the same. So this is going to be my 4th meal. It's around 6 o'clock right now, and then I'll have my last meal a few hours later, and then I will see you back for that. What I'm going to do right now is watch some YouTube videos of HYROX. I'm training for HYROX in less than a month and a half, and so I want to make sure I'm watching HYROX videos, studying good form, and just observing and allowing myself to fully, like a sponge, understand what it takes to compete at the highest levels. So that's it, and I will see you back for meal number 5.
From this moment onwards, I would say it could be on the runs, if anything. You know, I touched on earlier, we have seen John go unbroken on wall balls, but
all right, so it is 9:30, and I decided to make an executive decision to skip meal number 5. It's too late. I gotta wake up tomorrow at 4:45. If I end up eating now, I'm not going to be able to have the best sleep. And from a standpoint of what's most important, sleep takes precedent over eating for me, especially at night. And so one thing that is a learning lesson for me is when I'm trying to eat this amount of calories, probably not the best idea to have things like sweet potatoes, which will make me feel full for like 4 hours. Probably not the best thing. I want food that's gonna digest quickly. And so next week during my grocery haul, I'm not gonna get sweet potatoes. I'm gonna get more rice, maybe some russet potatoes, albeit they're pretty filling as well. But the white rice, the basmati rice especially, is gonna digest a lot more quickly so that I'm hungry in 3 hours instead of 4 hours, and therefore I could fit my meals in. So all that to say, if I were to have meal number 5, it would have been 1 can of tuna fish with 300 grams of rice, 100 grams of broccoli, and about 30 grams of sauerkraut. Really great probiotic, prebiotic. And that meal would have came out to, if we look at the data, 738 calories for 57 grams of protein, 17 grams of fat, and 93 grams of carbs. So my total caloric burn for the day, if I look at my Oura Ring data, was about 3250, give or take. And then my total intake for the day was about 3150. So my actual total for today was 2400 calories with 150 grams of protein, about 76 grams of fat, and 276 grams of carbs. And it happens. You know, it's not perfect. It's not designed to be. And right back on track tomorrow, wake up at 4:45 and do it all over again. So that's all for today. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope that you found a ton of value from this. It was a lot of fun for me to make for you. And feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, P.S. One last thing I wanted to add was every single night I got into a new habit over this last year of reading a physical book. I read about 10 pages of a book a day. And I found that it's a great replacement for the habit of watching TV later into the evening, which is gonna disrupt the melatonin production. It's gonna disrupt the quality of sleep. So even right now, you might notice my lights are warm tinted. They're not cool, and that's to avoid that melatonin suppression and the cortisol production that's gonna really disrupt the quality of sleep that I get. So I wanted to share that because oftentimes we have these habits that we're looking to develop, whether it's going to bed earlier, waking up earlier, and oftentimes it's not about eliminating the bad habits, it's about replacing them with better habits. Very much like crawling. When we're kids, we learn how to crawl. Why don't any of us crawl anymore? Well, it's because we learned how to walk. We learned a higher level habit that replaced the habit of getting us from place to place. And so similarly, we could replace these habits of scrolling or watching TV with the habit of reading, getting smarter, learning, and it's a great way to wind down in the evening, get a little bit sleepy, get a little bit tired, and have a good night rest. Right now I'm reading The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, and it's the journey of the Inferno, which is hell, purgatory, and then paradise or heaven. And I gotta tell you, as I'm reading this book, I literally feel like I was going through that journey. It was insane. And thankfully I made my way through the Inferno, I made my way through purgatory, and now I'm in paradise. And I gotta tell you, it is nice. It's nice in paradise. But just like any journey, you gotta start by descending first and then climbing your way back up. And that climb is sometimes harder than the descent, but if you hang in there, you get on the other side of paradise. So hope that helped again, and I will see you in the next video.